Probably didn't think I'd be back. But I'm here. And I'm ready to read some more stories and talk about a lot of things, actually. Before I get started, though, I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite listeners, watchers, and that is Amanda at Mandarin Makes. If you enjoy crochet projects or crafting of any kind, then you would enjoy seeing the really adorable little animals that she creates using her own two hands. And I'm not sure where she gets her ideas from, but maybe you could ask her on her channel called Mandarin Makes. And you know, I was thinking this morning about my main reason for wanting to be on here and reading my stories, and I might have mentioned it before, but I did want to go into a little bit more detail because I want to leave a lot of my memories in video form, and that includes the things that I've written in the past on medium.com, and also a lot of the memories, because it's sort of like a diary going back to what I wrote 3 years ago is sort of like a diary of what was going on in my life at the time. And so a lot of that is when I read through the stories or I see those dates and those topics, it reminds me of things that were going on back then. And I wanted to leave those sort of like a video diary for my own children. And because, I was just thinking, especially if you're seeing this for the first time, you might not have thought about how important it could be for your own children or for your own or for friends to see you later on. And, if something happens to you, heaven forbid, and this is all they're left with, would they just be left with memories that are in their head? Or would they be left with something that they could actually go back and look at and listen to, time after time, and to reassure them that, and keep their own memories fresh, maybe. And so if you have children, grandchildren, or anyone else that you'd like to be able to leave videos for, you should totally consider doing this. I know I would love to be able to have some of these that my mother left or that my father left. And I know it was when they passed away, maybe my mother not so much because she passed away in 2019, but my dad passed away like 25 years ago. And so it was, back before a lot of this technology was available. But I would really have loved to be able to see videos of my dad talking about, his early experiences or growing up, or, the things that he went through, or maybe things that happened when we were little kids that maybe we didn't remember, but that they had really good memories of. And so all of that is a really good video legacy for you to leave for anyone who cares about you. And just think about how you'd feel if it was, your relatives who were leaving these videos, and you could just go back and see them whenever you wanted to. So I wanted to do that, especially for my kids. And having said that, I wanted to kind of get into some of the stories that I wrote in the past, because although I may not be on Medium forever, and even if I still were on Medium, if something happened to me, my kids might not be able to get into that platform to be able to see what I had written before. And this way, they will always have that opportunity. So, yesterday, I think we had uh, talked about, we had read a few short stories, a couple of personal experiences, and then starting where I was yesterday. Hold on just a second. Let me get my charger going again. So starting where we were yesterday, some of the things that I wrote about on Medium were about the Medium platform itself. And so this next story is actually one of those. And so there would be a lot of articles on how to write, or, the Medium platform and the different features and characteristics, and a lot of complaining about the algorithm and that kind of thing. And so this next story is sort of like that. It is called Writing to Stop the Voices in Your Head. Sometimes I get up in the morning and just want to feel the keyboard under my fingertips. I just enjoy the flow of mindless words and phrases. Even just sounding the words out until they start sounding strange. Enough so that I have to Google how the word is really spelled just to make sure I'm even pronouncing it correctly. But one of the reasons I write is to get relief from the voices. I don't know if you've ever written, but if there are 100 stories trying to be told in your head and they want you to write them down, or you write a story and then you get all of this flood of ideas of other stories, then you almost can't write fast enough to keep everything, to keep all the ideas there so that you can write about them. It has only recently occurred to me that when I see someone sitting quietly in a corner, maybe just drinking a cup of coffee or staring off into space, I now think, they're doing what I'm doing. They are listening to the voices in their head. I spend so much time listening to my own voices, and it's not that they're telling me to do anything. They're usually just berating me over past mistakes and regrets and telling me what I should be worrying about. But when I write, those voices in my head retreat for just a little while, giving me some relief. As long as I can keep writing, keep typing out words on this page, the voices get quieter and quieter until I don't notice them as much. Very similar to tinnitus. I say tinnitus, and my oldest son says no, it's really tinnitus. So I'm not sure. If you know the correct pronunciation, I would really appreciate learning how to pronounce that correctly. It's still there, the tinnitus, but if I don't pay attention to it, I can almost make it disappear. But it's still there in the background. I'm so grateful for anything that brings me that relief. One day, those voices will be gone. I'll be past worry, past fear, and past regret. The tinnitus will even be silent at last, but for now, I must write. And Medium is a great place to write little stories like that, or even great stories. If you want to start your novel, that's a really good place to start. One thing I don't have, though, is I don't have my comments turned on my laptop. So let me see if I can figure that out again. I only did it yesterday for the first time, so also I finally realized why having a cup of tea is very handy whenever you are live streaming or even just doing a regular video like this, because after a while your throat starts to get just a little sore if you're not used to doing that much talking, and I'm not. I do talk, but not as much as I would ordinarily, like reading out loud that's a lot of pressure on your vocal cords. So let me see if I can somehow get this switched so that I can see my comments. I don't know, I may have to get my son in here. He's my IT guy, and see if he can tell me how I did that yesterday. I don't know. Maybe my comments there. That would be so nice if it was that easy. Okay, I think I can see it now. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, Amanda, I am so sorry. I thought about doing the notifications for when I plan to go live, but you might have to help me on that one. I know that I could watch a YouTube tutorial and it would show me how to do in fact, I've probably seen one before and I wasn't ready to go live, so I didn't pay any attention to it. But I'm not sure. If you have any ideas, maybe we could talk about that later. Now let me see if I can do a split screen so that I can get back to my stories. It's not going to let me do it. And it did yesterday. That's the strangest thing. Okay. Oh, there we go. I just have to drag it over there. Well, that was easy enough. Okay, now let me see if I can go find us another story to read. Okay. Well, that is not going to help unless I go to my published stories, I guess. I'm looking in my drafts. There we go. We're almost there. And I kind of wanted to tell them in order. I'm seeing a lot of them that I know I'm going to have so much fun when I actually get there to read them, but I was really wanting to read them in order. Okay, so this next one was written or was published on January the 11th of 2022. And it's a fiction piece, and it is called They Tell Me I'm Losing My Memories. This is a story about a woman who is getting Alzheimer's, something that I've always worried about. My grandmother didn't have Alzheimer's, and she passed away in her 80s. My mother passed away in her 80s, and she didn't have Alzheimer's. So I'm hoping that that's a genetic thing. And okay, so let me get to the story. I wish someone would shut the window, I thought groggily, as the icy March wind whipped the curtains around. It's been a while since they've been by to check on me. I can tell because I'm cold and I'm hungry. I lay here unable to provide the most basic care for myself, but that is not what concerns me in this moment. The medication that they forced me to take a few hours ago is wearing off now, and I think, no, I am positive that I have lost some of my memory. There are huge chunks of it just poof, gone. Nothing there but a black, well, nothingness. That is definitely more scary than knowing I can't get up and move around, that my hands are restrained, and I can't scratch that spot on my nose that's driving me crazy. And I'm not even going to think about why my pants are damp, but the wind coming in is not helping. I've been here a long time. Weeks, I think. I have no way of keeping track. There's no calendar on the wall, no clock, no windows. If I'm awake when they bring my food twice a day, then I can see daylight when the door is open, if it's during the day. The problem is they never keep the same schedule. Sometimes they don't remember to feed me until late at night. Sometimes they give me pills and I can try to guess what they're giving me, but sometimes it's mixed in my food and I'm so hungry I just don't care. And I don't know who they are. One of the people who comes is the same quiet young girl with the brown ponytail and glasses. She was in this room when they brought me in. She's never said a word to me, and believe me, I've tried to get her to say something, anything. I've yelled, cried, called her names. She flinched when I yelled, but that's the only sign I ever got that she even heard me. The rest of the time, she just calmly and efficiently goes about her business, cleans up, cleans me up, tidies the room, and then leaves. As my mind clears gradually, I begin to consider the idea of trying to break free again of the restraints. I test it out. I can tell my muscles are getting weaker the longer I lay here. I can feel my arms and my legs trying to obey the signals from my brain, but my eyes tell me I am not succeeding. Nothing is moving. This is frustrating. I know I can do this. I can't just lay here helpless without trying to do something about it. No one else even knows where I am. If I can't help myself, I am so afraid that I will just die here in this room. It's not fair. Sure, I've lived a long time compared to some. I just turned 81 last month, I think. Anyway, not long ago. I had so much to live for, still do. I'm independent, or I had been anyway. I had my own apartment, my own things, and a puppy. I remembered this just now and grabbed onto that memory. Yes, a 6-month-old chocolate lab. I've had him for about a month and just named him Charlie. Yes, Charlie. He was doing so well. I'd already potty trained him and with the help of a rolled up newspaper, taught him to leave my shoes alone. He's really good company, too. Was good company. Suddenly sad, I wondered who was taking care of him now. My mind now clear of whatever pharmaceutical substances they had last given me, I tried again to move my arms, my legs. If my mind had recovered, Surely my limbs could too. I saw a movement out of the corner of my eye. Yes, I could feel my foot moving. If both feet could get to the floor, I might be able to stand at least. I don't know how much else I could accomplish since my hands are still literally tied to the bed, but my feet just won't cooperate. So I'm stuck. Hello, anybody, I yelled out. If I'm going to be restrained, I don't have to be wet and hungry at the very least. Down the hallway, a door closes, and I hear footsteps coming closer, closer. They stop. The doorknob turns, and I'm afraid. I don't know who this person might be, and I shiver in the cold room. It's the young girl with glasses and a ponytail. I would think of her as a nurse, but she always wears a t-shirt and jeans. At least I'm familiar with her. Why hasn't someone brought me my dinner? My voice is thin and shaky, but maybe she'll take pity on me. Hopefully, I'll get a reaction this time. Sympathy? An apologetic look? Something. The young girl turns to me and looks directly in my eyes. You ate an hour ago, Granny. You just forgot. Surprised by her response, I quickly replied, If that's true, then why do I still feel hungry? I don't know, she answered. It could be the new medicine the doctor prescribed for you. It makes you sleepy, too. But I'll go to the kitchen and bring you something. Just give me a couple of minutes. This new information was a revelation to me. Why did I have no memory of any of this? I waited until she returned with the cold fried chicken and fresh fruit, ate all of it greedily as she hand-fed me, and then, feeling comfortably full, I asked her the questions that were uppermost in my mind. Why did you call me Granny? Her answer didn't surprise me. Because you are my grandmother. Okay, let's try again. Why don't I remember you then? An idea was beginning to form, and I didn't like it. She replied slowly, Because you have late-stage Alzheimer's, Granny. You never remember me, but that's okay. I understand. Why am I restrained? Why can't I get up and go outside? Where's Charlie? This time, I was not ready for the answer, even though my granddaughter said it as if she had spoken the explanation 100 times before. You were in an accident, Granny. You lost both your legs, so you can't get up. They couldn't fix your arms, but they don't work. See, you're not restrained. Your arms just don't work anymore. I looked at my arms, and what she'd said was true. There was nothing to keep them from moving, except that my brain couldn't seem to make it happen. Granny, you couldn't take care of Charlie or your apartment anymore, so I found a good home for him. She patted me on the shoulder as the tears ran down my cheeks. I will always be right here to take care of you. Even though you'll forget who I am, I won't leave you or let anyone else take care of you. I love you, Granny. She smiled gently at me and, picking up my bottle of medication, tipped 2 tablets onto her palm. Okay. And let me see. Did I get any comments when I published that story? Let me see. Oh, I got 3 comments. Let's see what they say. Julie says, This really strikes a chord with me. My friend's sister has this dreadful disease and she currently is being restrained. It is extremely heartbreaking for my friend. This is such an awful thing that can happen to someone losing their memory. Well, I wasn't sure about the being restrained thing because, like I said, my mother and my grandmother never had this disease, but I must have done a little bit of research or something to make me think that that was a possibility. And Stephen said, "Wow, so sad and powerful. My mother had Alzheimer's and dementia. She always called me Lynn, her favorite brother's name. I didn't bother correcting her. I just enjoyed the time we had together. One time when I brought my two children, she said, 'Lynn, why you got those two Chinese kids with you?' My children are half Korean, which she knew once. I just introduced them to her and said, 'These are your grandchildren.' She smiled a little and said, 'My son has children, but he doesn't live here anymore. He's in the army.' It was tough because though she was still alive, she was already gone. At least she got to spend time with her dead brother." Well, that's one way to view it. Okay, now let's go back to the previous page. Maybe it won't make me hunt through the whole list of articles again. That would be nice. Okay, there we go. Okay, and the next short story was published on January 12th, 2022, and it's called The Vine-Covered Cottage. A long time ago in a faraway land lived a beautiful young girl named Anaya, who dreamed that one day she would meet a dashing young stranger who would fall hopelessly in love with her and take her away to live in her very own vine-covered cottage. She would have a garden full of flowers and a house full of babies, and life would be perfect. She would grow vegetables and herbs and wave to her neighbors each morning as the women came out to see their husbands off to work, and lean across the hedges for a nice little morning chat in the sunshine. She would invite them all to afternoon tea, and they would sit with their dainty little teacups and beautiful lacy frocks and talk about the children and their husbands and what was for supper. That was the dream. That is, until Anaya's 20th birthday, when her father and stepmother decided that she was now too old for marriage and that she was becoming a constant drain on their meager income. The father and stepmother stayed up late one night discussing how Anaya should pay her own way and how they might make this happen. It was decided that they would send out an advertisement for Anaya to work as a scullery maid, and that they would collect half of her income every week to repay them for her upbringing. The couple told the news to Anaya the very next morning. Anaya knew that it would be impossible to find a husband once she was working all day long cleaning, scrubbing, and doing laundry. That would leave very little time for anything else. She was very sad. No one would want to marry a lowly scullery maid. She decided right there and then to run away. She thought for a very long time that night about how she could run away without being caught. If only she were a boy, it would be so much easier. No one would question a boy on the road. He could go wherever he wished, do whatever he wanted. Anaya began to think of a plan. That night she found her stepmother's mending basket. In the clothes that needed repairing, she found an old shirt and a pair of trousers. She would have to use some old ribbon to make the clothes fit around her waist and a cap to hide her long dark hair, but she felt hope and excitement for the first time in years. Within an hour, she was dressed in the old, torn clothing. She bound her hair, tied it in a scarf, and put an old cap over her head. Heart pounding, she tiptoed out of the house. Standing in the dark, she took one last look at the house she had lived in all her life and sighed. It hadn't really felt like a home since her mother died. Looking at it now, she saw it for what it was, a cage. And like a bird, she was free of that cage now. She could fly wherever the wind took her. She'd felt hopeless before, but now there really was hope. With a quick step, she left the farm behind. Before long, she came upon an abandoned hut on the edge of her father's property. Anaya had been in the hut before and knew that there were candles for light and a blanket on an old chair. Soon she was fast asleep. She was awakened early the next morning when some cows wandered close to the hut. She peeked out and, not seeing anyone around, closed the door and was soon on her way. Anaya walked until the late afternoon. She was feeling very hungry and tired, but she realized that until she had traveled for a couple of days, she would not feel completely safe. The sun was beginning to set when Anaya saw a cottage ahead. A lamp was burning brightly at the window, and she could hear a woman softly singing a lullaby. Feeling very tired, thirsty, and hungry, Anaya timidly knocked at the door. "Who is it?" came the cheerful reply. "Hello? I've been traveling all day without food and water and hoped you might have a chair I could sit in for a while." Come in, come in. There's always a chair in front of the fire for a weary traveler." An old woman threw the door wide open, and Anaya saw the roaring fire, the table set for supper, and in the corner a nice cozy bed was made up. "Well, sit down now, my lad, and tell me of your adventures. But first, let me bring you a cool cup of water. There you go." Anaya thanked her for the water and gazed longingly at the supper table. Seeing this, the old woman chuckled and offered to set an extra plate for the grateful youth. Once Anaya's stomach was comfortably filled, she leaned back with a satisfied smile and thanked the old woman yet again. "Well, now, I can't be turning you out with the night coming on. You'll stay here by the fire," she continued, "and I can see you're ready to fall fast asleep. So we'll wait until breakfast to hear the tales of your travels, eh?" But Anaya was nearly asleep on her feet and barely remembered her head falling onto the soft pillow. When she woke the next morning, it was to the smell of eggs and sausage frying in the skillet. "Good morning to you, miss." "Good morning," replied Anaya, and then suddenly both of her hands flew to her cap, which was gone. She stared open-mouthed at the old woman, wondering what to do next. "Now don't you be fretting, child. I don't know how you come to be here, but I suspect you've run away from a bad state of affairs at home. Just know that you're welcome to stay as long as you need to rest up. I'm sure you'll tell me anything I need to know in your own time." And she looked expectantly at Anaya. "Yes, ma'am," replied the young girl meekly. "I am running away. It's just that, well, I know I'm past the marrying age, but my father and stepmother were going to force me into service as a scullery maid. I want more choices for my life. Am I not old enough to decide for myself?" She ended her explanation with a mutinous pout. The old woman grinned. "Why, you surely are. Let's eat our breakfast and then we'll talk some more." Anaya helped clean up the dishes in the kitchen after they'd eaten. She told the rest of her story and how she'd been so lonely for years and was waiting for marriage to escape her father's home. The young girl talked and talked and talked. She poured out her heart, and in so doing found someone who listened patiently and attentively. When she finally finished, she knew that the old woman would not try to make her return to live under her father's roof. The old woman wiped her hands on her apron and stood up. I'm going to make us a midday meal if you'd like to help. And then I have a proposition for you if you'll consider it. She then shared her own story with Anaya, how she'd run away herself as a young girl, how she'd found this cottage and the woman who'd lived here and had taken her in. And after that, how she'd been taught about gathering helpful herbs and plants to help the local village people in times of sickness, and how to be a midwife and a nurse for when the doctor couldn't come. Then she looked at Anaya and concluded, I'm getting older, and it's harder to take care of my duties. I'm offering you the same chance I had. It's a good life. You may not have the dashing young man and house full of your own babies, but you will be free to live life on your own terms. Anaya considered it carefully. She realized that this indeed was what she had been looking for when she ran away. Without knowing it at the time, it was what she would have chosen. And then a beautiful smile lit her face. But I'll still have the vine-covered cottage. The moral of this story is that 1, you may not know what life holds for you. It may be so much more than your current dream. 2, you have the power to break out of your own cage. And 3, happiness comes from helping others who may not be in as good a place as you are right now. And let's see if anybody else objected to my moral of the story. I only got one comment on that story, and it was from Cannon. And he said, Judy, a nice and simple story. I showed it to my 10-year-old who loved it. I liked the rustic backdrop and the fact that the lead character chose a life going back to our old ways in terms of learning about herbs and engaging in a true community, living where everyone is indispensable. That is a more coveted dream than the vine-covered cottage. Oh, and I replied to it at the time. Remember, this was 3 years ago. And I said, I'm so glad your child enjoyed it. It's the kind of fairy tale stuff I enjoyed as a child, too. But I loved the moral of each story. They always said something about life. What is the favorite moral of a story that you've read? What's your favorite moral to a story? I know all of the Aesop's fables were told because they had a moral to the story, and you usually could read it at the end of the story. But what was your favorite? Okay, let me see. My next story or my next article. Okay. The next, it was actually not a story that I wrote next. On the very next day, January 13th of 2022, it was it was an article based on a newspaper article that I read, I think. Maybe it could have been something online. But it was talking about how that there was apparently was, and still is, of course, a huge homeless problem. And so I started thinking, are there really, I mean, when you think about the homeless problem, I know just in the small town we live in, there are several houses that just stand empty. And maybe they have stood empty for several years because maybe grandma or grandpa lived in the house when they passed away, and the grandchildren have just never bothered to sell it or to do anything with it. But when you consider all the homeless people that there are, I just wondered if there were a lot of empty houses for a lot of homeless people. And so I did a little bit of research and found out something very interesting to me. In February 2021, my son and I were on our way to South Padre Island, Texas, and stopped in Austin to refuel. Wow, I can't believe it's already been 3 years. There were dozens of homeless people living under the highway in tents of every color and size. That was a week before Texas got the freezing temperatures that made headline news. The memory of the homeless there just sticks in my head. In October of this past year, I drove through Seattle on I-5 and saw the horrifying numbers of makeshift tents with homeless persons living under the highway overpass there. Even before that road trip, I'd watched YouTube video interviews made by Mark Horvath of Invisible People. Mark has over 1 million subscribers, and he sheds light on the very real problem of homeless people everywhere and has interviewed hundreds of homeless people. Watching their stories is very often heartbreaking, but it has also made me grateful for all that I have. Seeing homeless people in real life was almost overwhelming. So when I read an article today about homelessness, it brought those memories back fresh in my mind. And I wondered, is there really a housing shortage? Is lack of housing really the problem? This is what I found. The most recent data from the National Alliance to End Homelessness, a U.S. resource, puts the number of homeless people in the United States at 552,830. The same resource estimates that there are more than 17 million vacant homes across the U.S. using information obtained from the Census Bureau. Okay, so I'm noticing a comment on the last story that I wrote, the one about the moral to the story. And Amanda says, I relate to the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. I'm slow and trying to be steady. Amanda, you are so funny. But if that's the way you really feel, I apologize. I'm sorry. Okay, so back to my homelessness article. Okay. So we went over the number of the homeless, right? Okay, the same resource estimates that there are more than 17 million vacant homes across the U.S. using information obtained from the Census Bureau. Okay, so there are more than enough empty houses to shelter every single homeless person in the U.S. What about our neighbor to the north, Canada? According to one source, Canada has a chronic insufficiency of home supply that is temporarily exacerbated by pandemic-related impacts linked to record low mortgage rates and a shift in preference for housing, says a report released by Scotiabank this year. Okay, so there's an insufficiency of homes, right? Let's check the number of homeless against the number of empty houses in Canada. Canadian Real Estate Wealth says, a study released this week found that in Canada in 2020, there were up to 1,340,364 vacant homes, comprising 8.7% of all homes in the country. That same issue pointed out that it would take just 9% of the over 1.3 million vacant homes in Canada to give every homeless person in the country a place to live. Wow. So it's obviously not a housing shortage. One Canadian government website reports that homelessness is a widespread social concern in Canada and many other developed countries. More than 235,000 people in Canada experience homelessness in any given year, and 25 to 35,000 people may be experiencing homelessness on any given night. So, Canada also has enough existing empty houses to shelter every homeless person in that country. What about the entire globe? Is there even room enough for all of Earth's population to have a space for a home of their own? According to Bill Hazelton, PhD from University of Melbourne, 1992, the land surface area of the Earth is about 150 million square kilometers, or 150,000 billion square meters. The population of the Earth is about 7.5 billion people at that time. Therefore, each person could be allocated about 20,000 square meters. This is about 2 hectares, or about 5 acres. This is sufficient area to have a detached house and some land around it. This doesn't even account for families who live together or apartment complexes that can literally house hundreds of people on the same plot of land. So if enough space is not the problem, and enough existing empty houses is not the problem, what is the problem? Why do we have such a huge homeless problem? I think the problem boils down to money. Landlords and mortgage holders want it, and most of us don't have it. Yes, there are other factors, lack of employment or education or training, credit issues. All of those factors are related to money. It takes money to become educated or train for a job or career. Having enough money impacts your credit or lack of it. What do you think? Is it more than money? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And let's see what comments. We only got 3 comments for that story too, for that article actually. Okay, so the resource manual, that's what this one Medium writer went by, called himself. There is so much land and so many different types of homes that can be built. There really is no reason for people to be homeless. They can create better problems for people who can't work, whatever their reason is, so they could at least have a roof over their head. They started creating tiny homes that you could buy and put together in your backyard. Like you said, people can live in RVs or tiny cabins. It's possible, and they can grow their own food. There are tons of indoor greenhouses. There are people that also don't want to be supported by the government, so that part is tricky, but if they're willing to accept donations from others, there's a possibility of that. The only thing that would probably be a problem is immigration issues. Maybe some homeless people don't have any identity and they can't get one due to loss of paperwork or whatever. It's a mix of different reasons. And I agreed with that at the time. It said there really isn't a reason people should be homeless. Plus, there's enough food for everyone, but businesses, companies, and the government have everything set up so that only a few can buy what they really want to buy, and the poor can only afford cheap stuff that's not as nutritious. And Gerald said, it's a money problem for sure. Everything costs money. Unless you can find a way to have a strong income or incomes or save really well, it's going to be tough to keep up with the increasing rent/mortgage and the side bills. And that is so true. And that was 3 years ago. So, definitely situation has not improved since then. And then Trev says, similar here in the UK, every city you go to and similar estimates suggest 227,000 homeless, big issue, and 600,000 vacant homes, property market. And they are far from all druggies. I'm guessing he means that they're not druggies. Young people who've had arguments with their parents or lack money or credit rating to get a place. I talked to some of them. So many of us are one or two steps away from it with the energy and the petrol crisis. So yeah, that the price of fuel and energy is still just as high as it was back then. It's still a struggle for millions, even right now. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. That's the thing. And I just did research just on homeless and housing. So, I'm pretty sure if you did research on the other topics that affect people financially, it would, I imagine those stories would be very, very similar. There's enough food, and yet people have problems getting enough food to eat. And so somewhere there's a disconnect. And Amanda, one of my watchers is made the comment that she thinks it's all about the money, and I agree. I think it's all about people who just are concerned with having more, not even having enough, because they have enough. Billionaires obviously have enough, but they're still trying to get more. It's just not enough to satisfy them. Is there any amount of gold or silver really that could satisfy a billionaire? I don't know. And I've seen, like, I've read things that said that, a lot of them have money that will support not only their children when they die, but their grandchildren and generations down the line. So, I mean, it's not about, certainly not about caring about what happens to anybody else other than your own family. And I would imagine, I don't know this because I have never been a millionaire and don't know exactly what that would feel like, but I imagine that once you have enough money to where you feel like insulated from anything that could happen, like if a war broke out or anything like that, you have that insulation between you and what's going on in the outside world, that that you're not as worried about other people. It's always like, well, why didn't they plan better? Or why didn't they save more? Why didn't they work harder? And it's not always about that. Okay, so let's go back to what we were reading. Okay, so my next story was a funny little piece called I Feel So Used. And this is memoirs, but memoirs of a tissue box. This is told from the tissue box's point of view. There's that nasty hand again, reaching out for me. She hasn't even washed it since the last time. I remember being untouched. I once was full and happy. Now I just feel used. I can feel the little germs running around over my body. She's pulling my insides out, bit by bit. Soon there'll be nothing left in me. But does she care? She says it's just allergies. I think it might be a cold or the flu. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor or an x-ray machine. All I know is I was a pretty box of tissues just made to sit here and look nice. They gave me big purple flowers and called me ultra soft. The way it's going, I'll be empty by the end of the day and sitting in a trash can. Still svelte and new from the store, no dance dings or dust, but now on my way to the city dump. Along with all of my innards, tissues that were once snuggled inside me, now crumpled and full of all kinds of gross mucus and glop. Sigh. Life is so unfair. And I added a little gify. A little gif? I'm not sure what they're called. Anyway, a little girl crying. Boo-hoo. Here's an article with a bonus funny at the bottom. It's the same article, but I added a couple of little funny jokes at the end. How do you make a tissue dance? Some of you probably already know the answer. Put a little boogie in it. And the second bonus funny question is, why does nobody like jokes about tissues? Answer, because they're terrible. Terrible. Oh my goodness, that little dinky article got 25 comments. That must have brought out the emotion. Must have brought out the emotion in some people. Okay. May said, great stuff, made me smile. Oh my goodness, I was on a roll, I guess. I put, your response just blew me away. And Jill said, don't know how I missed this one. She must have read it much later. Patricia highlighted the bonus funny question, how do you make a tissue dance? And she put the letters ROFL. Rolling on the floor laughing. Mark says, I roared, was not expecting satire. I thought it to be a story of how someone mistreated you. Greatness, I am following you now. Made my night. Thanks. Oh, and I gave you a standing ovation, 50 claps. On Medium, when you like someone's story, sometimes even if you don't like someone's story, you can give them up to 50 claps. And now, it didn't used to be considered a metric for earning money, but now it is. It is counted in the metrics for how much what you've written, how much it can earn. So if you get a lot of people clapping and highlighting and commenting, the more attention your article gets, the more you can potentially get paid for the article. Okay, and Liberty said, wonderful, such fun to read. And of course, I'm a sucker for the dumbest jokes on the planet. Fabulous, thank you. I think more people actually commented on the jokes at the end. Joan says, oh, the tissue box perspective. Oh, and this one guy, I'm not sure exactly what his real name is, but he goes by Bigga P, said, you gotta laugh right at the end as intended. Nice setup. And Karen says, what a fun read. I'm still giggling, Judy. And Deborah said, LOL, all the tissue boxes in my house probably have similar complaints. I have allergies and I go through a lot of tissues. Michelle says, my girls used to say this little joke about put a little boogie in it. all the time, and I still think it's funny. Natalie says, cutest little story. Thanks for the chuckles. Huh. Indigo said, the jokes at the end made me giggle. Can I steal them, please? I didn't make them up, so you feel free to do what you want to with them. And Nikos said, poor little tissue box. All they ever wanted was to be left alone with their tissues intact, germs or mucus free and snuggled neatly inside them. Life is unfair indeed. Yes, it can be. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I made the mistake of, I knew I was going to go live today, but I made the mistake of not charging all of my devices. And so I am not sure how much battery I still have left on this. Oh, 36%. So maybe it'll be good for a little bit longer. Maybe it'll be good for one more story. Let me see if I can find one more story. But before then, I wanted to share with you a little thing that, a little craft that I was working on this last summer. I got started crafting by making cards, greeting cards, and I was having a lot of fun with it. I was watching YouTube tutorials from all kinds of different creators on not just greeting cards, but then it branched off into scrapbooking. And then I found something called junk journaling. And so, and I know this is really kind of hopeless looking, but it was an early model. So, try not to scream too hard when you see it, because obviously I haven't learned how to do the binding or anything yet. But this is one of my first attempts at a junk journal. And so, and I know that there's things inside that I want to show you, but first of all, I'm going to see if you can, I know that I saw it just a second ago. Okay, you can see just a little bit of it right here, where the paper doesn't quite come to the edge, and you can see what it is. And this is actually, the cardboard on this is actually a carton of, or a box, I should say, of ice cream treats. So the ice cream didn't touch the box because the treats inside are individually wrapped. But I use this because one of the creators on YouTube was talking about salvaging all kinds of things that that you throw away that you could actually use. In fact, it's the perfect packaging, or the perfect materials to use for something called a junk journal, because you can take pieces of everything and put inside a junk journal. So, and I know it's kind of sad looking, so try not to be too critical of it. It is okay. So when you open it up, I don't know if you can see this. When you open it up, you can make it so that the cardboard, it's like a card almost, but it's a flap, and then you can decorate that flap. This flap that I've got here comes down from the top, but then you lift it up and you've got things underneath too. Okay, so underneath I've got these little jewels glued on here, as well as the little butterflies. And then I love these little silhouette cats. I don't know if you've ever seen those in scrapbooking supplies, or I don't even know if they would be in scrapbooking supplies. They might be in just, I don't know, because I've been at Hobby Lobby and they don't really have a junk journal section. Most of these I got on Temu. Um, and so there are all kinds of like little decorations that you can put in there. And then I made these are little handmade envelopes. You can't open these up, but I have others that you can open up. And then I just decorated it. You just decorate it however you want to. And I know it kind of looks kind of junky, but at the same time, it's a very satisfying feeling of creating things. And now on this page, oh, I guess I better turn it around a little bit. On this page, I just love this little, I think I got most of these little decorations I got from ordering on Temu. And I used to call it Temu, but then I've heard that other people, those who know better than me, pronounce it correctly, and it's supposed to be Temu. So then another thing that is so much fun to make are these little envelopes. I mean, these little pockets, okay? So, and there's another one of those little envelopes that I made. Anyway, the thing about this is that these little pockets can be made from envelopes that you'd ordinarily throw away. And, I've probably thrown away millions of these envelopes in my life when you get bills or junk mail, and you don't think anything of it. You just throw the envelopes in the trash and keep the rest of it until the bill is paid, and then probably that goes in the trash too. But now I will never throw away another one of these envelopes again, because and I do have a stockpile, and it's probably been 3 months since I've done any scrapbooking or junk journaling or anything like that. But once you get into junk journaling, you will never look at the things that you put in the trash. You will never look at them the same. So anyway, these cute little pockets can hold just about anything. So that one is holding just that little thing right there. Okay, now there's another one of those silhouette cats. Do you see that? They're just so adorable. And then this little thing here, I found this on another YouTube tutorial about how to make little ephemera, little pieces that you can add to your junk journal. And you just get it by like tearing little pieces of paper in a specific way, and then you just glue them together and decorate them. And I like putting the little words, the little sayings, like this one says, "Creativity takes courage." But there are some, and I think I got that in Hobby Lobby, but there are some that are just hilarious. I don't have that on the back of it. And then, of course, that is a flap of itself. You can make the flaps go out as far as you want to. Okay, that one says, "Blessed are the curious." Oh, and that's another thing about how to find different pieces for your junk journals is to just go through old magazines. Like, I think I found this in a magazine that was thrown out by the library because it was an old magazine that probably nobody would read again. So you can find your little pieces of ephemera in all kinds of places. And then you can make your little corners like out of just regular pieces of paper as well. So I've got a little pocket there. Did I say pocket? I think I might have said corner. And then here's another little pocket in this corner. And then I've got a little bookmark that I made that I actually covered in I covered them in pieces of washi tape. And oh my goodness, Temu has so much beautiful washi tape. You should definitely check it out. And it's much better prices than other places that sell like specialty brand craft making or scrapbooking supplies. So anyway, it's just, I can't explain it. If you haven't done junk journaling, then you don't really understand, what the allure is, or what the interest is in junk journaling. But once you do it, it just feels so satisfying. There's just something so satisfying about sitting and gluing your ephemera onto your pages and designing your little junk journal. And I haven't written in any of my pages or anything yet, but there are plenty of YouTube tutorials on people who've made junk journals who do actually use them to write in, maybe to keep memories and other pits. Other bits of bits and pieces from like places that they've gone, and maybe pictures. And then there are some who actually make junk journals and sell them. But to me, they just feel so personal. I can't see parting with a junk journal. And of course, I couldn't do anything with this one anyway. I'd have to figure out some way to straighten up the edges. But anyway, okay, so I think there's time for one more story before my battery dies. And we just did the Memoirs of a Tissue Box. Okay. All right. So the next day I wrote a story about Medium itself again, but it's really on how to find ideas about how to story topics, about how to find topics to write about. It's called 10 Plus Places to Find Hundreds of Story Topics. And the subtitle is, If You Do It Right, You'll Have Story Ideas for Decades to Come. Are you here because you're wondering how to come up with your next story or article idea? Maybe you just want to add to your list of topic producing resources. Either way, let's get right to it. Number 1, check out Pinterest for ideas. One Pinterest user going by the name of Fake Redhead has a page that contains hundreds of writing prompts with snappy one-liners to get you and your readers hooked. Readsy Prompts has hundreds of scenarios to get your creative juices flowing. It also hosts contests in which you can win actual money. Servicescape has a prompt generator for 1,153 fiction story ideas that is based on genre. Another idea is Open a Thesaurus. Find a word. Using word association, write 2 paragraphs using the word and a few of its synonyms. Talk about a memory this brings to mind. Save it as a draft and mull over it. Add an interesting photo and publish it. Grammarly has some suggestions for writing ideas. What's your favorite song? Write a story about how the song was conceived. Write an article about song lyrics. Make up a life for the last grocery cashier that you talked to, or that old man sitting on the park bench. Grammarly has 12 things to write about when you're fresh out of ideas. Wow, that doesn't seem like such a big number compared to some of these other places. Okay, another idea is type how to into Google, and it will autofill with ideas for you to write about. If you want to write about depression, type the word into Google and it will generate topics about that specific subject. Wordcounter.net has a list of 53 places and ways to get ideas for writing. Some suggestions are movies, daydreams, conversations, and people watching. Writer's Digest says the best ways to find great writing ideas come from face-to-face interactions with other people and lists 6 ways to use other people in your search for new writing ideas. Elite Content Marketer has a list of 66 article ideas for the topic challenged writer, with categories such as personal subjects, fun and weird writing ideas, and 8 simple strategies for coming up with fresh ideas. Check out some blogs for getting those ideas flowing again. WikiHow has some tips. Even Quora's got some ideas. Glenn Leibowitz has his own cheat sheet he's willing to share with you. Now, that last one is a writer on medium.com. And when I mentioned him, because a lot of the writers there write using writing prompts, his cheat sheet, I made sure to add a little link so that, you could go on there and see what exactly he was trying to share with budding writers. Excuse me. When hunting down ideas to write about, you will soon begin to notice a pattern. The majority of writers draw inspiration from the same sources. Some of these include newspaper and magazine articles, short stories and novels, television programs or movies, a painting, conversation, memories, which reminds me, so I'm going to make a really quick note here. Okay. An interesting experience, a fascinating person, a lecture or class, the death of a friend, holidays, a great meal or a terrible meal, a beautiful landscape, an ugly building. Okay, so before I finish this article, I want to mention 3 other ways that I have found to get writing ideas or to use as writing prompts especially for fiction, but actually you could use one of them for both fiction and nonfiction. So since I wrote that article, I've heard about, which I didn't know about this, and probably every one of you know about this, but there is fan fiction that you can write for. For instance, if you love Star Trek like I do, you can write your own episodes of Star Trek using the characters, and you can publish it on usually a fan fiction page for other people who enjoy reading that topic or that genre. Also, one of the ways that I enjoy getting story ideas is to go on to pixabay.com, which is a great resource for pictures if you need pictures for writing or for publishing of any kind. And if you type in weird in the bar, or unusual, or fantasy, or what are some others, or maybe mystery, and you'll get all kinds of unusual pictures and that people have submitted from everywhere, and some of them definitely are very suggestive of a story. Like you could just look at them and see, okay, there's a story there, and if I think about it just a little bit, I can figure out what the story is, or either that or it's just a story that's in your imagination, and that picture is just drawing it out. And there's one last resource, and that is ChatGPT. So if you will type in, when you go on chat, if you'll type in, give me 50 writing prompts, and then you can be more specific. You can say involving a teenager, or involving aliens, whatever your genre is. Then you can have writing prompts from here to eternity. Also, that is the one resource that I talked about when I said that it can be used for more than fiction, because I also have written probably 400 to 500 articles on Newsbreak, and ChatGPT has been very helpful for everything from give me a little bit more information about this topic, or can you give me hashtags to be able to, to put at the end when you're publishing it. So ChatGPT can help with just about all of that. Okay, so let me finish this article up. It says, but what makes your article different is your own perspective, your use of phrasing and word choice, and the way you put it all together. This makes it a unique experience for the reader. And once you find your audience, they will be loyal because you bring them something that no one else can, your own way of seeing the world. So once again, I would encourage any of you who are interested in writing to write on medium.com, because you don't need money to get started writing. To get monetized, yes, you would need to pay the $5 a month. But, like I said, there have been months when I've earned, $100. I think the highest that I ever made was like $200 and something in one month. But the friend who introduced me to Medium was used to making around $900 a month from writing on Medium. I think the algorithms changed just a little bit, but it's still a good place to get started and to develop your writing skills. I think we're going to stop there for today as far as reading my older stories. And that we're still just in the middle of January of 2022. So I've still got over 2 years of reading. Well, not that it's going to take me 2 years to read it, but 2 years of writing to read here. And hopefully some of my kids are watching this at some point in the future, and they're like, Mom, we didn't know that you were going to go on YouTube and embarrass us like this. And all I can say is, you know what? You are seeing me have a great time. All right, I am going to wrap it up for today, and I appreciate your being here and watching. And if you missed the live stream and you're watching this later, then please go and check out my other live streams that I did before this, that I've done after this, and I hope that you're enjoying it just as much as I am. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.